Αρχίζουμε, είναι 5 λεπτά, λίγο για μπορούν να έρθουν όλοι. Αρχίζουμε αυτή την συνάντηση και ευχαριστούμε η παρουσία σας. Αυτή την συνάντηση θα προτείνουμε από το Κέντρο Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα και είναι μία συνάντηση και τελειώνει μία πορεία. Μία πορεία και τώρα θα δούμε και μας κράτησε 2 χρόνια και είναι μία ευκαιρία αυτό που ζήσαμε κάποιους ανθρώπους να τα μοιραστούμε με κάποιους άλλους με το σκοπό να είναι χρήσιμο μπορεί για κάποιους ανθρώπους και δουλεύουν ιδιαίτερα στο κομμάτι της, αυτό que λέμε κοινωνικά έργα, εταιρείες μη κερδοσκοπικών και δεν θέλουν τα λεφτά σαν το πρώτο σκοπό της εταιρείας. Αυτό είναι μία πρωτοβουλία από κοινωνικά έργα τους φρές από την Ευρώπη. Δεν είναι μόνο εμείς εδώ στην Ελλάδα. Τώρα ο Αντώνης παρακαλώ θα δούμε ένα μικρό PowerPoint και για να εξηγήσω λίγο αυτό το σκοπό που είχαμε. Μετά θα έχουμε ένα δεύτερο κομμάτι της συναντήσης που θα ακούμε και καλωσορίζομαι στον Νταβίτ από την Ισπανία, τώρα στην Σεβίλια, και θα μας παρουσιάζει με έναν τρόπο πιο τεχνικό αυτό που κάναμε αυτά τα 2 χρόνια. Στο τέλος θα υπάρχει μια ευκαιρία αν κάποιος θέλει να κάνει μια ερώτηση, κάτι που δεν έχει καταλάβει. Όλα αυτά θα μας κρατήσει γύρω 1 ώρα περίπου. Okay. Βλέπετε στην οθόνη ακριβώς αυτός ήταν το σκοπός, να δημιουργούμε αυτή την πλατφόρμα, digital πλατφόρμα, για τα κοινωνικά έργα de διαφορετικές χώρες που οι φρέρ, οι μαρίστες είμαστε παρόντες. Αντώνη, προχωράμε. Βέβαια και όλοι ξέρουμε, ιδιαίτερα αυτούς που δουλεύουμε στο εκπαιδευτικό κομμάτι, και μετά την πανδημία, με το COVID, πολλά πράγματα έχουν αλλάξει. Και το ίδιο έχει συμβαίνει με τα κοινωνικά έργα που σε πολλές χώρες έχουμε. Αυτό σημαίνει και μπροστά αυτό το πρόβλημα αρχίσαμε να σκεφτούμε πρέπει να κάνουμε κάτι στο κομμάτι, εκπαιδευτικό κομμάτι και στα κοινωνικά έργα που έχουμε. Αυτό ήταν στο σκοπός. Και αυτό βέβαια μόνος μου δεν μπορώ να το κάνω. Χρειάζω αυτή την ιδέα και τα τελευταία χρόνια ακούσαμε να συνεργαστούμε, να δουλέψουμε με δίκτυα, μιλάμε παράδειγμα Champagne Global, δίκτυα για τα προστασία των παιδιών. Όλα αυτά και κάνουμε και παρουσιάζουμε σήμερα έχει σχέση με αυτές τις καινούριες ανάγκες για την εκπαίδευση. Αυτός ήταν το σκοπός για αυτή την δουλειά που κάναμε στα 2 χρόνια. Και είναι αυτή την πρώτη πλατφόρμα ηλεκτρικής μάθησης και βέβαια είναι κάτι και σημαίνει συνεργασία, σημαίνει μία υποχρεώση για εμείς σαν Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα να συμμετέχουμε σε αυτή την ευκαιρία, σε αυτή την πλατφόρμα και βέβαια να κρατήσουμε κάποια λεφτά από αυτό το πρόγραμμα Εράσμους από την Ευρώπη. Και ποιος είμαστε σε αυτή την ομάδα που δουλέψαμε. Βλέπετε εδώ στην οθόνη όλες αυτές τις από την Ισπανία, από την Ιταλία, Ρουμανία, Ουγγαρία, εδώ στην Ελλάδα, Γερμανία, Πορτογαλία και με την βοήθεια, με την συνοδεία, η εμψύχωση Νευτέλεια, αυτό το παιδί και σας είχα πριν, ο Δαβίτ, σαν σύνοδος, για κατάλληλο ιδιαίτερο, για να ξέρει πολύ καλά πώς δουλεύει todo αυτό το σύστημα στην Ευρώπη. Βλέπετε και εμείς, Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα, είμαστε στο ΛΑΜΚΕ. Όταν αρχίσαμε το Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα και προσπαθήσαμε να είναι αναγνωρισμένο στο κράτος στην Ελλάδα, δεν το καταφέραμε σαν μόνο Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα. Και ευτυχώς έχουμε στα Πατήσια, στο Λεόντιο Αθηνών, αυτή την εταιρεία, αστική μη κερδοσκοπική εταιρεία, και Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα έχει αυτή την ομπρέλα. Είμαστε αναγνωρισμένος από το κράτος στην Ελλάδα κάτω από την ΛΑΜΚΕ. Και γι' αυτό μπορούμε να συμμετέχουμε στα προγράμματα της Ευρώπης στο Εράσμους. Για το βλέπετε και Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα δεν φαίνεται στο όνομα, αλλά είμαστε μέσα στο ΛΑΜΚΕ. Περνάμε, Αντώνη. Και βλέπετε εδώ όλη την πορεία που κάναμε από Μάρτιος 2022 μέχρι τώρα Μάρτιος 2024. Κάναμε 3 συναντήσεις. Η πρώτη εικόνα που βλέπετε αριστερά πάνω είναι στη Μάλαγα, της Ισπανίας. Η δεύτερη εικόνα δεξιά ήταν εδώ στην Ελλάδα, στο Λεόντιο Αθηνών, το μήνα Ιούνιος, πέρσι. Κάτω βλέπουμε μία συνάντηση τηλεδιάσκεψη και μία τελευταία, δεξιά κάτω, ήταν η τελευταία συνάντηση στην Ουγγαρία, σε χώρες που έχουμε κάποια κοινωνικά έργα και όχι μόνο κάναμε την δουλειά, ήταν μια ευκαιρία να βλέπουμε, να γνωρίζουμε από κοντά ακριβώς τι είναι αυτό το κοινωνικό έργο σε διαφορετικές χώρες. Πάντα ήταν 2 άτομα από κάθε οργάνωση. Ο Αντώνη Βιδάλης και εγώ συμμετείχαμε στη Μάλαγα και εδώ στην Ελλάδα, και στην Ρουμανία ήταν παρόντες ο Αντώνη Βιδάλης και ο Γιάννης Ξενόπουλος, εκπρόσωπος από το Καρδιά Χωρίς Σύνορα. Αυτή ήταν η πορεία και τώρα τελειώνουμε αυτή την πορεία και είχαμε μία υποχρεώση να παρουσιάζουμε αυτή την πλατφόρμα σε άλλες οργανώσεις. Είναι μια υποχρεώση από εμάς, όχι μόνο να λάβουμε αυτή την επιμόρφωση και κάποια χορηγία λεφτά από την Ευρώπη, αλλά να μεταδώσουμε στους άλλους, αν μπορεί κάποιος να μάθει να βλέπει και είναι χρήσιμο για την οργάνωση. Αυτό ήταν το σκοπός. Και αυτή είναι η πλατφόρμα, και στην συνέχεια ο Δαβίτ Σάντσεθ από την Νευτέλεια θα μας παρουσιάζει σε όλους μας, ή μετά στο τέλος, επαναλαμβάνω, θα υπάρχει ευκαιρία για ερωτήσεις. Θα υπενθυμίσω, θα λάβουμε ένα email στο τέλος για να κάνουμε μια αξιολόγηση. Είναι 2 λεπτά και σας καλέσω να το κάνετε το πιο σύντομο και γρήγορα που μπορείτε. Σήμερα, αύριο, για να μπορούμε να κλείνουμε όλη αυτή τη διαδικασία, γιατί πρέπει το μήνα Μάρτιο να το έχουμε ολοκληρώσει. Ευχαριστώ από μένα αυτή την παρουσία, μια φωτογραφία από την συνάντηση στη Μάλαγα, στο σχολείο Μάλαγα. Δίνω τώρα τα λόγια στον Δαβίτ Σάντσεθ από την Σεβίλια, Ισπανία. Θα μιλήσει αγγλικά, αλλά πιστεύω και σιγά σιγά, αργά, και θα το καταλαβαίνουμε, και αν υπάρχει κάποια αμφιβολία, ο Αντώνη Βιδάλης θα κάνει την μετάφραση. David, tienes la palabra. Buenas tardes.
¿El vídeo lo quieres poner ahora o después?
Sí, gracias. Πριν να δώσουμε το λόγο στο Δαβίδ, θα παρουσιάσουμε ένα μικρό βίντεο για τι είναι η καρδιά χωρίς σύνορα. Γιατί υπάρχουν ανθρώπους και δεν ξέρουν τι είναι καρδιά χωρίς σύνορα. Το ακούμε.
Το κέντρο ημέρας, Καρδιά χωρίς σύνορα, είναι ένα κοινωνικό έργο που άνοιξε τις πόρτες του πρόσφατα στις Σαχαρνές στην Αθήνα. Δέχεται καθημερινά 15 με 20 παιδιά του δημοτικού, που προέρχονται από φτωχές οικογένειες μεταναστών, οι οποίοι αναζητούν κάποια ενισχυτική διδασκαλία για τα παιδιά τους, ώστε να βελτιωθεί κάποτε η κοινωνική τους ένταξη. 4 αδελφοί της κοινότητας Σαχαρνών είναι οι υπεύθυνοι. Πολυάριθμοι εθελοντές από τα 2 Λεόντια Πατησίων και Νέας Μήμης βοηθούν καθημερινά τα παιδιά. Το όνομα του κέντρου μας υπενθυμίζει το όνειρο του Αγίου Μαρκελίνου Σαμπανιά και μας παρακινεί να αφήσουμε τις συνήθειές μας και τις ανέσεις μας. Μια καρδιά χωρίς σύνορα. Καρδιά χωρίς σύνορα.
Okay. David.
Thank you, Rafa. So good evening, everyone. Now I'm going to make a small demonstration on how you can use ChatGPT to write projects and also to support you during the project implementation. My presentation is going to be in English because I don't speak Greek, but as Rafa said before, Andoni is going to be, if someone doesn't understand something of what I said, please, you can mention it in the chat and Andoni will stop me and he will make a small translation of it. But I will try to speak slowly, so I'm sure that most of you will understand. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use the free version of ChatGPT. This is the version 3.5. And later, also, I will show you the free version of Copilot and Gemini. I don't know if some of you are already using regularly ChatGPT or any other AI model, but if you are not using them yet, and after this webinar, you start using them, I also suggest that you give a try to the premium, the plus version, and then you compare. Because if you're going to use this kind of AI models on a regular basis, it may be worth it to pay the premium version to get all the extra features. But as I was saying before, now for this demonstration, we are going to use the free version of the chat. So to talk to the chat, in this case to ChatGPT, but it works the same way with any other LLM, so large language model that we use, ChatGPT, Copilot, or Gemini, we have to insert instructions. And those instructions, we call them prompts. So I'm going to start with a very simple prompt about the project. So I'm going to ask the chat, as you can see on your screen, to write a project about promoting social inclusion of children living in poor areas of Madrid. And we send the prompt. Impressive. So let's read it. So we have the title, Project Inclusion, Empowering Children in Madrid's Undeserved Communities. So there is an introduction, then there are some objectives. There are some activities, so establish community centers, tutoring and mentoring programs, after-school programs, cultural experiences, parental engagement, community events, and then there is point 4, the implementation plan. So to start with the needs assessment, then there will be the program development, pilot implementation, scale up and sustainability, and then monitoring and evaluation, impact, outcomes, and conclusion. So as you can see, the text that ChatGPT has created is very general. This could work for almost any project. And this text is not customized to our needs because we didn't tell ChatGPT our needs. So we just asked with a very basic prompt, as you saw at the beginning. We just ask the chat to write a project about promoting social inclusion of children living in poor areas of Madrid. If we want the chat to give to us a more detailed project, more customized to our needs, we need to improve that instruction. We need to improve that prompt. So let's try with this one. In this prompt, we ask the chat to write a project, the same, about promoting the social inclusion of children living in poor areas of Madrid, but we specify that the target group, the children, will be aged between 6 and 12 years old, that the activities of the project must be attractive for children of that age, and very easy and cheap to implement because we only have 5 volunteers in our organization available for this project. So they could work only on Saturdays from 10 to 12. So let's see. So as you can see, by reading this new text, especially regarding the activities, before there was like creating a social center, there was a need assessment, a pilot implementation. It was very complex. Now, this time that we have used a more detailed prompt, the answer is more detailed too, and also is customized to our needs. We said that this project must be very easy, very cheap to implement, that the project will be implemented by 5 volunteers. So if you compare now the answer that we got with the first prompt to this answer, this is more customized to our needs because our instruction, our prompt was also more detailed. So we are closer of getting what we wanted from the chat. But this text, especially if we want to apply for public funding, for example, this text description of the project may not be sufficient yet. We need something more elaborated. So we are going to try again with a more elaborated, more detailed prompt. I'm going to create a new conversation. And the reason is because the chat learned from us. So if this new prompt, I will insert it in the previous conversation, the chat will try to reformulate the previous answer to match the instruction I given now. However, if I start a new conversation, the chat is going to start from zero to try to answer my request, my prompt. So in this prompt, we are going to start giving a role to the chat. We are going to tell the chat how we want to act. And in this case, it will be act like an expert with more than 20 years experience in the development and implementation of social projects. In particular, projects aiming to promote the social inclusion of children. And then we ask, can you write a project aiming to promote the social inclusion of children aged between 6 and 12 years old, living in the neighborhood? So now even we specify which neighborhood, Usera, in Madrid. And then, as we did before, we also specify that the activities of the project must be attractive, easy and cheap to implement. We said that they will be implemented by the 5 volunteers and they are only available on Saturdays from 10 to 12. And additionally, because I said that we want a text that is suitable to apply for public funding, for example, what I have done here is I have also described the index, how we want the information, the project to be presented. And let's see what we get. So you can see this is much better. We have the project presented exactly the way that we want it. We have the title, we have the executive summary, we have a description of the target group that we didn't get in the 2 previous prompts. We have objectives, activities, and as specify, each activity will be linked, will have 1 or 2 results. Also, the timing, the schedule for the activities, a description of the short and long-term impact, and a budget breakdown. So this is good, but we can make it better. So one thing that, especially for all of you that you are familiar with writing social projects, something that probably you will miss here is a more detailed description of the target group, especially with some statistics data. So we are going to ask the chat to improve the description of the target group by inserting statistics data from reliable sources. So here now you can see that in the description of the target group, the chat inserts some data from the Spanish National Institute of Statistics, also refer there is also from, according to recent statistics from Madrid City Council. So this is more, let's say, stronger to convince whoever is going to read, to evaluate this project, can be more convincing to explain the need for this project, because we are using data from reliable sources. Now that we have a better description of the target group, we can ask the chat to improve the description of the objectives that we got before, now to make them more linked to this detailed description of the target group. So as you can see now, we have objectives which are more specific and also very important, they are measurable. So we have objectives about increasing the average score of children's social skill by 20%. We have also increasing the number of children participating in community events by 30%. 80% of the children express satisfaction with their creative output. So this also is a lot better than the first version of the objectives that we got. If we were writing a project application after having a more detailed description of the target group and a more detailed description of the objectives, next step will be the activities. At first, the first description that we got of activities was this one that you see on your screen. So it was something very basic. We need something else to insert in the event that we were writing a project application. So we are going to ask the chat to write, for example, the first project activity in 1000 characters. That's also important because very often when you are filling a project application, most of the times you will have a limit in the number of characters. So you can also insert that limit in your prompt. So you will get an answer which match that number. There we have. So now we have the description of the activity 1, which is scheduled to be implemented in weeks from 1st to the 4th week. And there you have a more detailed description of that activity. Now, although we don't need it in this scenario because we were saying that we were writing a project to be submitted, but for you to have also an idea of how you can also use this for project implementation, we can also ask the chat to create a step-by-step instructions for the volunteers who are going to implement this activity. And that will be very practical later on during the project implementation, that we have a document, basic, but a detailed step-by-step of what the volunteers will need to do to implement this activity. So let's see what we get. So that you can see, we have step-by-step instructions for the volunteers from starting with the preparation, then the welcome and introduction of the group. There will be demonstration, hands-on crafting. So, and even if you are not satisfied with that and you want to improve it, you could ask to improve it, just like for example, this will be very general, so the chat doesn't know exactly what else do you want. So it's going to try to make it better and probably a bit longer and with a bit more detail. But if we want to improve it in a certain way, for example, let's say that after reading this description, I'm missing an ice-breaking game at the beginning to do with the children. So I can ask the chat to, I say I would like to start the activity with an ice-breaking exercise suitable for children of this age. Can you suggest one and provide step-by-step instructions for the volunteers? And there we get the instructions for the specific ice-breaking game. If you don't like the game, you will only have to ask the chat to provide 1, 2, 3, or 5 alternatives. Obviously, all this is not is editable. So this is a help that you receive, but you can always customize what you need. So as you can see at this stage, only with a few prompts, we have gone from a very basic index of context objectives activities to a detailed methodology for an exercise. And this is an example of how you could write a project application using ChatGPT. So you start from a description of the general objective of the project and prompt by prompt asking to the chat to develop all the content that you need. And the most important, as I was saying before, when an answer doesn't suit you, you ask the chat to improve it. And if in the instructions, when you ask the chat to improve it, you specify how you want the chat to improve it, or what new content you want the chat to insert, the answer that you're going to receive is going to be better. So another example, we can also use the chat to find funding opportunities for our project. So let's try with this prompt. Says that considering that this project will be implemented in Madrid, in Spain, can you suggest 10 public and 10 private institutions which normally offer funding for this type of project? So here in this answer, it lists several administrations, public administrations and private institutions, but there is not much information. So this is a good example of how we could ask the chat to improve it. So we can ask to be more specific. So here it provides more information. If we were using the premium version, or we were using Copilot, which is connected to the internet, we would also ask for the links to the website. But GPT 3.5 is not connected to the internet. Okay. Another example, how we could use ChatGPT for fundraising. We could say that we would like to publish a post on our social media to find private donors for this project. Can you produce the message? And let's see what we get. So as you can see, we got a message ready to be published, for example, in Facebook, with the emojis already inserted. Very clear. But this message may be suitable for Facebook, but it could be too long for X, the formerly Twitter. So we could also ask the chat to shorten the message. And here we have a message which match the maximum number of characters allowed by X. Let's say that in our project, 30% of our target population are immigrants from a French-speaking country, for example. So we can also ask the chat to translate these messages if we want to publish it on our social media. There we go. Another way that we could use ChatGPT for project implementation. So before we were talking that this project was going to be implemented by a group of 5 volunteers. So we could ask the chat if our organization is established in Spain, in Madrid, what legal requirements do we must fulfill to involve 5 volunteers in this project? So this answer is in principle based on Spanish law, But especially when you are asking for critical information and regarding law, you have to be aware first that the free version, as I said before, the 3.5 is not connected to the internet. So at this moment, all the information that you get is updated until January 2022. And they keep updating that every few months. But also, the chat is not always 100% right. So when you ask for critical information, very important information, it's always highly recommended that you also check yourself, double check the information with an external source. But this can be practical to start working on it. And as example here in the first point, the chat says that we should have a volunteer agreement. And also the chat is very practical, very helpful to draft this kind of documents. Before we have to go to Google, look for templates, select 2 or 3 templates, and then build our own. Here we can just ask the chat to draft the volunteer agreement. And later on, you can also ask prompt by prompt to customize this agreement to your needs. So as you can see, with this very small demonstration, you can see different ways of how ChatGPT can be useful for application, project writing, and also during the project implementation. There are many ways that you can use it. And ChatGPT is not the only tool. There are several tools. These, as I said before, they are called LLM, large language models. And there is the ChatGPT from the company OpenAI. But also you have Copilot, which is from Microsoft. Copilot use a combination of different models. Sometimes it use ChatGPT-4, but also other AI models. The advantage of Copilot, even the free version, is that Copilot is connected to the internet. So you can have, it can help you to find information live on internet. While the free version of ChatGPT, as I said before, is limited at this moment, updated until January 2022. You also have Gemini, which is the language model from Google. And the same, you have the free version and you have the premium version. They are different, but I wouldn't say which one is better. If after this webinar or in the near future, if you start using this kind of models, I suggest that first you try the free versions of the 3 of them. There are also more. There is a Claude, a few other more, but these are the 3 more popular. I suggest that you try the 3 of them and then you see which one suits best your needs, because depending for what kind of content, applications, topics you're going to use it, one can be better than the others. And once you have decided to use one, I also recommend that you give a try to the premium versions of them, because you can get a lot of additional features which can be worth it, the small amount that you have to pay per month. So if you are interested in learning more about ChatGPT and other tools which use AI, artificial intelligence, I recommend you to visit the platform that Rafael mentioned before, the Digitalization and Resilience platform, which is this one that you can see now on your screen. So to access the platform, you have to go to www.digitalizationandresilience.eu. I'm going to put that URL in the chat. You select your language, and you can access for free 2 different e-learning models that we have produced during the last 2 years on different group set of tools that we thought that could be helpful, useful for non-profit organizations. All the tools that are compiled there, they are free for non-profit organizations. That was one of the criteria for the selection. Here in the module on ChatGPT, during the next days, we will publish the document with all the prompts that I have used today. In case that you want to, if you find it helpful, you can reuse them for your own projects. So when we started this project 2 years ago, as Rafa said before, the aim of the project was to answer the need of accelerate the digitalization process, especially for many small non-profit organizations through the EU, which started the digitalization process because of the COVID and the pandemic. But during the last 2 years, things have changed a lot. And most of us 2 years ago, we knew nothing about AI. And now AI is omnipresent everywhere. For you to have an example, these tools, when we first selected them, none of them had artificial intelligence integrated. Nowadays, most of the tools that we're going to find here, for example, in e-learning module 3, tools for a digital workspace, there you can learn about the Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. In Microsoft 635, they integrated recently Copilot in all the applications. So AI is now a very important part of Microsoft 365. If you go to the module on project management software, the module 6, there is one that is very good, ClickUp, and ClickUp has AI integrated. And also they have done it in very good way. It can really be very helpful to manage projects in non-profit organizations. So also for graphic design, for example, most of you probably know about Canvas. In the module 18, we explain how to use Canvas. Canvas also allows you nowadays to design and to edit images, graphic design using AI. And the reason why today's webinar we have centered it about the ChatGPT and especially about the importance of the prompt and how you communicate is because all these applications, many others in the future, they're going to have AI integrated. And although AI is going to continue improving and the communication is going to be easier because AI models in the short midterm, they're going to be able to understand a lot better even than nowadays the commands, the prompts from the humans. A very important part to get the most from AI is the quality of the instructions that you give to the AI, the prompts. And that's why in today's webinar, we wanted to make a small demonstration about that, how to make good prompts to get good answers from the AI. And we hope that what you have learned today, you can use it later on if you use Copilot in Microsoft 365, or if you use the AI of Canvas or the AI of ClickUp. So now, after this small demonstration and introduction to the platform, if you are interested, I invite you during the next days to have a look to the different modules and explore yourself what can be helpful for you.